but to help us try and work out what's going to happen, we've got a very illustrious panel. I think Alina is going to pin the panel now so that they appear front of screen. Please, if you can interact with this, it would be really helpful if you could. I don't want to ask all the questions, although I've got lots to ask. But whilst the panel are being pinned, there am I. I didn't really want you to pin me first, but if we pin the others, and then I will ask them to individually very quickly introduce themselves as they appear on screen. I think as Alina pins them. I haven't introduced myself. Alina, pin quicker because of short time. There we are. Excellent. Nikki Todd. Nikki, you're first in the hot seat.
Hello, good.
A much upgraded version, unfair because he's sick, of Adrian. Could you introduce yourself and give us a little positive history of your illustrious career today?
Sure. Well, thank you, Simon, for inviting me to the panel this afternoon. And hi, everybody. Hope everyone's well. Yes, my name is Nikki Todd. I am the Sales and Customer Experience Director for VOW Wholesale. I have been in the industry for 31 years. Yes, I know I look about 25, but really, yes, 31 years in the industry. Started at grassroots level in telesales and first tier management, and then here I am helping to lead the way in VOW Wholesale. I will just say the last 18 months, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, I would say the last 18 months for me personally and professionally have been the most challenging 18 months I have ever endured. But professionally, actually one of the most fulfilling 18 months. And I say fulfilling because it's really solidified my love for this industry. How we've all come together over the last 18 months has been quite remarkable. So that has been very fulfilling for me to see my colleagues, industry colleagues, work colleagues come together and fight the good fight and try and get ourselves out of this. And yeah. So
excellent. Thank you, Nikki. Very rousing, very experienced, very rousing introduction. Thank you so much. Next on my screen now, Alina has pinned everyone. Thank you, Alina. I'll go to David. David, I can't wait for your intro. Oh, David, you're on mute. I think you're on mute. So
I'm not now, I think. I'm David Fielding of Heatons Group. I've worked for myself for 35 years, but been in the industry 46 years, so I'm quite long in the tooth. I've worked for Lawton's of Liverpool, a real quality operation, and I worked for WBS, Winterbolt Supplies, anything but. So I got some good educations from those guys. But prior to that, I started out as a bank clerk, but I was told I am not banking material. I take that as a compliment and have enjoyed my career in the industry. I was invited on by Simon because he thinks I can be a bit gobby. I'll do my best to.
I don't think I used the word gobby, David, but I said opinionated, which is very different. And your opinions, I think, are always very interesting. Nick has a slightly different view, having worked in banking or maybe he doesn't. But there we are. This is not a panel for bankers. Okay, let's go to Stuart next. Stuart, not as fresh-faced as you look in the industry, actually.
Well, I'm completely outnumbered in years by Nikki and David, and Philip's probably thinking, oh my gosh, maybe not so many. So yeah, thank you for inviting me, and good afternoon to everyone. Stuart Derbyshire, I'm Sales and Marketing Director for OTG, part of the Paragon Group, which I'm sure many of you know. I feel ashamed almost to say I've only been in the industry 24 years. I actually thought it was less than that, but I did a quick check earlier from my start in 1997 in August, when my offer letter actually came from WH Smith's, branded as Nice Day, which was their B2B channel. Joined in August. It was an experience and a half, way before mobile phones and laptops and all this technology that we have today to keep us massively occupied. But I joined to head up their print services division after working in the print industry and previously a bit briefly before there as an engineer. So joined in that sort of customer service, print technology at the time. Was quite straightforward, Docutext, and then moved through the business and worked in many, many different channels. Probably the most significant time I spent was leading the international division for the UK, Ireland, and then subsequently, before I left Office Depot at the end of last year, which seems strange now that we've acquired them, I was running the international model across all of Europe, which entailed direct control and management of the Office Depot countries where we had global clients, but equally, and probably most important for this event, working with a whole number of partners, dealers really, but at a country level, across many other countries, 16, 17 in total, mostly East European and in the Nordic regions, where we were distributing goods, selling them goods, helping them with their pricing, helping them with their marketing tactics, helping them with their online tools, and most importantly, helping them with the contractual elements to secure these larger customers. So I had quite some experience doing that on and off for many, many years. My tenure at Office Depot finished at the end of last year, as I touched on a moment ago. Joined OTG at the beginning of this year to head up all of the different operating channels. And I must say, working in the dealer channel, as much as I knew about Spices and 5-star and equally knew about all of the woes of that area last year, what I would say is all the people that I've met, and I've done my best to try and meet some, either chatting on LinkedIn or face-to-face or indeed on calls. Everyone's been so supportive and open and, you know, giving me good insight what's happened in the past and equally what's happening in their own businesses. And that's been really valuable as a learning curve. But we are where we are today. I'm in our Manchester site, our new head office, and we have lots of plans for the dealer network moving forward. So it's probably enough, Simon.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Stuart. We may have time for those plans, but if not, I know that you're probably keen to share them moving forward. And last but obviously not least, my good friend, marathon runner and boss board member extraordinaire, Philip, can you do yourself justice, or I know you're a humble man, or can I introduce you? I think you should introduce yourself.
Oh, happy to do that, Simon. Philip here. I'm the MD for Hamelin's business in the UK. I also joined the industry a long time ago, about 34 years at Spices Manufacturing. I've spent all my career on the vendor side, and for at least 2/3 of it, probably thought that it looked a lot easier being on the other side. Not so sure I would change seats now. Quite happy to be a manufacturer. And I've been the MD of Hamelin for 15 years or something, since Hamelin bought what was John Dickinson. And we're known for things like black and red books and Elba filing. That's us.
Great, thank you very much. So the more astute amongst you will have noticed that, to borrow from my favourite film, The Breakfast Club, all the food groups are represented here. So we have dealers, we have wholesalers, we have hybrids with Stuart, and we have vendors or manufacturers with Philip. So there is no ground that we can't cover. I am really hoping and anticipating, as I said earlier, that the chat function will now start buzzing. And I will be deeply saddened if we don't get some good insight or questions on chat. But I'm gonna get the ball rolling actually with a difficult one, but quite a broad one, which is Nick has and Rich and me a little bit have talked about how the world has changed. Stop spinning started again, and is confusing, and we're not quite sure how it's going to spin next. The topic for the panel is how has the world stop spinning impacted our industry and the dealer channel. But I want to go straight into the dealer channel to start with, and we can come back up if we need to. And people are talking about shakeout. People are talking, people are talking about dealer shakeout for many years. I think arrival of the big box, Viking and or Depot and Staples, then the bank crisis 2008, and we didn't see a great deal of shakeout. And my opening question is, do you think that this time we will see a significant restructuring or shakeout in the dealer channel, or do we think that the dealer channel is resilient enough to kind of ride this wave out like we've ridden the other ones out? And I think I'll start with you, David, if that's okay, just because you're closest to the front line on this one.
I think it's going to split a bit. For the dealers that had a tough COVID and ran into financial problems, I think for them, they're going to be vulnerable to either have to sell or be receive an offer. But the dealers who got through it quite well, there's still opportunity out there, and it depends what you've done. We, and Simon is aware of this, but in the January, 2 months before COVID really got public, we repositioned ourselves, seeing it coming. And one of our things was our sales force was to hunt new business. Our view is we would never get the same spend off the same customer. So we needed more customers to stay in the market. This is not diversifying at all, which obviously we're doing. But actually, if we don't have more customers, we'll be a smaller business. And if the customers have done, the dealers have done that, then I think they will be in a reasonably good place. Or if they aren't doing it, they need to do it very quickly. Inflation, I believe, has been a wonderful thing for the dealer community, as it was for the wholesalers at Brexit time. I think that this roughly 15% inflation allows us to move a lot less product, but have the same turnover, which is not good. And I'm very aware that this is a short-term lovely opportunity where we can make good money. But if you're not there yet, I believe you just have got to drive yourself to be doing 15% more than you were at the start of COVID.
So David, let me hone you in on this. What will happen to the dealers that can't adapt to the changes quick enough?
Well, if you don't change, you die, really, quite bluntly. If you've got a bottom line, it will just get eroded. You will reduce staff, hopefully automate, do a little bit of that. That's how you'll survive. Or you diversify. I mean, I was surprised. I only found today, doing a few questions this morning, that we have 4 medical suppliers. And we sold, I think it was about 500 quid's worth of flea tick removal equipment yesterday into a forestry industry. So if we can diversify, we can survive.
So diversify or change to survive is your message. I mean, that's probably maybe the same message that you might have given arrival of the big box, because I know you were around then, and you might have given 2008, 2009. The dealer channel is not known for its kind of speed of change. I don't mean that critically. I just mean it accurately. I think we'd all agree with that. So is this kind of recovery going to be any different than 08, 09 and whenever the big box were there, or is this just another speed bump in resilient dealers' normal course of passage?
It's come back really fast for us. We're trading ahead of targets now. Only the last 2 or 3 months. April for us, when it was very, very tough. What happened in 2008-9 is, I believe, furniture took about 5 years to get to a proper boom level, and 1 or 2 people have agreed with me on that one. And furniture at the moment has come back instantly. Whether that's people rejigging their offices, is it a short-term boost? I don't know. And we just have to grab everything that's around at the moment and then see what's sustainable.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Brilliant opening comments. Philip, I'm going to ask you this question next. Actually, how do you see the dealer channel kind of riding these bumps, and given we've talked about e-commerce and kind of diversification, some of the key kind of two trends, how do you feel, preferably, you know, preferring to be a vendor right now? Why would you prefer to be there rather than elsewhere?
Well, only that over my career, you know, I've seen the routes to market change. I remember the furore of Viking arriving. So, but also because basically there'll be consumers and somebody makes stuff. So those two things are pretty much okay. What happens in the middle can change. So what do I think? Well, I agree with a lot of what David said, is that if you can change and you can adapt and you're fast enough, then you can find ways to survive. Bigger businesses tend to be worse at that than smaller businesses. Smaller businesses that maybe some of the money is in the hands of the people who own it. You know, they always can decide how much of their time they're charging for, whereas bigger businesses, everyone comes with a bill. So I think there'll be lots of change. I think it's like many of these things, and I found myself there as a manufacturer before Hamelin bought us, is neither being big enough to have the money to find a way of investing through, or small enough to be fast enough. If you're in the middle ground, it's like playing tennis, you lose. You need to be at one of the net or the baseline. So I think the channel will be resilient. Certainly, as a manufacturer, we need it. I'm certain it will exist, and it will just continue to adapt in terms of exactly how much of different types of products go through that supply chain. But I don't believe that businesses will suddenly want to open up hundreds of suppliers to deliver to them. They will want somebody who's going to do a good job of sorting out their needs of things they want in the office, and people who are good at doing that will survive. I get a bit worried when I hear lots of people talking about, oh well, we're going to have a website better than Amazon or whatever it is, because I'm just not so convinced about that. But I am convinced about when I hear people adding value through delivering things that more automated systems are not so good at. That I am convinced about strategically.
Okay, really interesting. Thank you. Nikki, you're very experienced in the dealer world. The big shakeout, or just another, you know, curve in the road or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, if you look from a credit insurer's perspective, you know, they're very nervous around our sector. That's no surprise to anybody here today. And they were and have been expecting an element of vulnerability, for sure. We're not seeing that vulnerability. Whether it's going to come later, let's hope not. But I think both David and yourself, Sam, have used that word resilient, and that's just testament to our daily community. The resilience that most have shown through diversification, through managing cash, through the various factors and levers, has just shown and demonstrated the strength that our community has, for sure. We were expecting certainly to see a little more rocky position, certainly from August onwards, in terms of dealers maybe not surviving, but that's certainly not happened. I'm quite positive. I think I think our dealers have got some great opportunity. We're here to help and support them to grab that opportunity. Look, you know, certainly customers are telling me that, you know, the word of love local is certainly coming back. We're, you know, online, you've seen the trends. We know online purchases have rocketed, but equally through the past 18 months, love local has become a little bit stronger. I think we've got an opportunity in our community to really maximise that love local opportunity for us. So I'm not expecting a big shake-up. We're not seeing it just yet. Those words might be wrong. Might see something around the corner very differently. But I think the resilience of our dealer community is a testament to what we're seeing today. We're not seeing anything too strong in respect of our survival of our dealers.
Okay, Stuart, I'm going to come on to you. You've just been rebranded in the chat as Piers Brosnan, which I would definitely say. So I'm going to, but Stuart, just before I come to you, I just wanted to challenge everyone on this, actually, on dealer resilience. Which is actually, Nick, I want to ask you a question about them, and you don't have to answer this. And Stuart, I don't think I can ask you this because of the kind of Spices journey or OT journey, but the actual number of customers or numbers of dealers you've got. Because when we launched Office Power, we started with an initial database of, I think, about 5,000 dealers that we think might be relevant. Now that database is now down to about 1,500, I think. So those 1,500 are very resilient. I mean, that's Darwinism, it's survival of the fittest. I know that's a misquote. So when we look at dealers and we talk to amazing, change-driven, resilient dealers like David and others, of course we see them as resilient. But are the less resilient ones going to, we'll come on to M&A later, but going to disappear or reshape or reform? And Nikki, the question is, have you seen a reduction in the number of dealers in what is a very surprising large amount of time that you've worked in the industry?
Certainly, if we're talking pandemic, no,
Right.
we haven't. We've seen. I think Stuart's concurring with that. The answer to that, no, we haven't. Will that come later? We hope not. We don't know. But again, strength in numbers, the community that we all share. I think we've really, gone shoulder to shoulder and helped each other with survival. So no, we have the same number of customers on our books.
Okay,
Certainly
great.
a year ago.
That's very encouraging. Okay, Piers, your very handsome view on this. Do you think? And I know that you're relatively new to the kind of.
Yeah.
But having a kind of very fast kind of learning curve, but using your knowledge of the sector and business, what do you think is going to happen in the next chapter?
Yeah, I mean, your 1,500, by the way, is not too dissimilar to our own modelling. Very
Right.
close. Less than 10% variance, we've seen the dealer take up increase over the last, since I've been here 10 months. We haven't seen any fold at all or be taken up. People choose where they buy, absolutely. But if I go back to when I was first entered into sales many years ago and looked after a territory and came across many dealers, and why did they add value and why did customers use them? I don't actually think that's changed. In the 10-month learning curve here, sort of 17, 18 years later, I don't think the reasons changed why customers make choice. And if we look at why customer make choice, it will be through two things. The relationship and the ease. And the ease is the extended range these days and moving away just from general office supplies. I think we're all saying the same thing here. But the trick is what is next? It's the obvious PPE associated, and that kept many people going, including ourselves here. So great services, but what's next? What's the next added value? What's the next consolidation? What are the customers looking for? And how do you put it in the basket and make it easy and strengthen the relationship and move away from price? That's what it's all about, whether you're in a B2B or that wholesale channel. I think, Simon, you said earlier, foolish to anyone to say, I'm going to compete or be up against Amazon. But good website, good service model, speed of delivery, and creating efficiencies in your delivery model, stocklist model, whatever it might be. You have those two-pronged attack of speed, efficient, low cost to run your business, and you can diversify and you can spread your wings into other categories and solutions. I actually think there's absolutely a place, and there's probably an opportunity for growth, because Amazon are not going to do any of that, even if they recruited 500 account managers. They'd just be skimming the surface. They're really not going to touch it. So there's plenty of value to be had. What I do think is there will be consolidation in the marketplace, but I think people will actually start up as well. I think it's easier in some regards for somebody to start afresh, because it's easier to buy these days with the internet and the web and the different service models. But there inevitably will be some M&A going on, some consolidation, but it wouldn't surprise me if more people entered. And I think it's easier today to do that from people I talk to who are a bit more entrepreneurial maybe than I am, where they've set up on their own and created what I would have called, when I was at Office Depot, reseller accounts. We have many of those. So, my experience is people who are entrepreneurial will find a way. And if you've got the relationship in the network and the tooling that goes with it to some level, you don't need to invest to the Amazon level, but you need to be appropriate and adequate in what the customer is looking for in that tooling. Then why would it shrink? Opportunity is always there. It's just different.
That's brilliant. Okay, and thank you, everyone. I've got lots of questions. I'm going to try and be clever and make them segue if I can, but I'm not sure I'm that clever. But some key points coming out there, which are raised in the questions. The love local or the value add piece, I'm gonna come back to a little bit. I think we'll probably come back to the Amazon piece a little bit, which is, do you compete or do you try and sit alongside Amazon? But let's come on. Thank you, Jason, for your question. Let's just come on to the delivery point that you just talked about there and segue that in. So there is no doubting that in all areas of the supply chain there are huge challenges, and actually I'm very sympathetic in most cases to the challenges that the supply chain has in delivering the service levels that we were used to pre-pandemic. But I think a lot of dealers are struggling with service levels. And a lot of them are considering, whereas there has been a trend, you mentioned stockless, Stuart, there has been a trend for at least a decade to more and more stockless, just-in-time stock management, even outsourcing kind of end customer delivery in a drop ship capacity. The question is, do the panel think that because this is a major pain point right now and will probably continue to be for a little bit, because Amazon are so good at it and are becoming the #1 competitor for most of us, maybe not the vendors, but most of the rest of the supply chain, do you think that dealers should consider, and this might come up in Chris's session later, but do you think dealers should consider potentially putting costs back into their business, refleeting, or kind of adjusting the percentage of their deliveries that are done by their own vans? I'm going to start with Nikki, actually, because this is right in your sweet spot, and then David, I know that you have all your own vans actually, so I might come to you next. But Nikki, what's your view on is the wagon and wheels still the right thing for a dealer to plug into, or should they consider, with the disruption and foresee disruption, taking back ownership of that last mile or even the whole end to end?
Yeah, I think we're in a hybrid situation, Simon. Warehouse and wheels, not wagon and wheels. But,
sorry, warehouse and wheels.
But nearly right. Warehouse and wheels, is key for lots of dealers. Equally, a drop next day to their premises so they can send their fleet out is equally as important. We have seen certainly over the last 6 months, 7 months, a real push towards using the wholesaler as their warehouse and wheels, simply because lots of dealers have taken cost out of their business. They've closed their warehouses, they have removed their vehicles, so that natural migration has come across. But equally, we do still have a need, a want and a desire to have drops next day into their premise so that they can send their fleet out. And when we talk about love local, that's a key element, a unique selling point for our customers and for the dealers. So there's certainly been a hybrid, big move towards warehouse and wheels, simply because, as I said previously, customers, dealers have had to do that, or felt it was necessary at the time. We are seeing a few customers move back from warehouse and wheels back to stocking, simply because they want to have that unique selling point against Amazon. They want to be able to pull up in their own van and get their brand back on the street, and equally diversification. Dealers have diversified that well, and are purchasing products away from a wholesaler into other verticals, other sectors, and have the need to be able to stock those products. So definitely a hybrid, Simon, in respect of what our dealers are wanting and desiring now.
Okay, great.
Agree with
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah.
Apologies for the slip. Wagon wheels were my favourite biscuit when I was.
Mine too.
I always get that wrong. David, I think you've always kept your own fleet. So I want you to come out of your own business and just be a pragmatic representation of the collective dealer. And I also know that you're very keen on your unit economics, on your numbers. Would you advocate the significant cost of refleeting? I know that's a very generic question. Or how would you advise the average dealer on this one?
Okay. If you can afford it, I would advocate refleeting. I've made a couple of notes while Nicky was talking then. I think customers leave if they feel unloved. I don't mean mind customers, that's just a general business thing. So a driver sees the customer more than anybody else. If you've got your own drivers, I believe they're way ahead of a third-party driver. And we see this because we use third-party drops quite a lot around the country. We find it's really poor on returns. It's really poor on tracking. If we were shipping paper, that's a problem for us. Anything heavy, low margin line. Drivers will report back to your owner that I've seen somebody else's product in there. And I've put in the last one, if you employ charming or sexy drivers, it will generate you more business. We had a customer that insisted on paper being delivered a ream at a time per day because she was absolutely hot for our driver. Now, it's not really good business, but the concept of do the customers get a better experience? I think they do, and I think that helps us hold on to customers.
Well,
if you've got driver positions going, David, then yeah, count me in.
Yeah, you're sexy, you'll do.
Okay, this is not quite that kind of panel. I was going to, but I think Piers might be available at the weekends. I know he's very busy, but I can imagine that James Bond arriving to deliver your paper would be a winner. Okay. So if you can afford it, it's a source of competitive advantage. And if you can afford James Bond to do your deliveries, then even better. I think is the conclusion.
His brother buys off us.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to. Because we've got so many questions here and time is tight. I'm not going to ask everyone the same question. I'm going to go on to the value add piece, and I'm going to ask because thank you, Chris. There's a question from Chris here. And Philip, specifically for you, but Stuart, coming to you next. This term of value-added reseller, which is something that, in theory, you would say Amazon perhaps may struggle to do if love local, sexy drivers, or whatever else. How do you add value? What are the factors of adding value?
Well, I actually had in my mind, goes nicely to Stuart, actually, in some ways. You just think about what Depot have just done. I mean, they're trying to simplify their business around what complexity they feel they can manage, and they've given the complex stuff, not given, I suspect, to office team who within the Paragon umbrella, I think probably feel more comfortable having more complex accounts who require more individual service and product offerings. again, I think in business, it's, people talk about stick to knitting and all those kind of old adages, but I believe that really helps. If you think about what in your business do you feel you do best, and sometimes you have to look back in history. If you feel you've lost your way and you can't think, what is my cornerstone? What is it that I cling to that makes me unique and different, and I have some competitive advantage, and then build out from there. But if you build out in too many directions too fast, very often you just end up piling loads of cost and going into areas where you don't have any a real credibility. So there's no point. Somebody was on the chat, or should we go into supplying energy and this and that? I mean, maybe, fine, but you want to make sure that you've got some people in your business who are really good at doing that. If you ask people who are very good at selling books and pads, maybe to did that, and then ask them to go and sell, I don't know, complicated stuff and service agreements or whatever, you might be in for a nasty surprise. So I think everybody has to decide for themselves what forms of diversification are credible from where they exist today. And I think sometimes I've seen that over the years in our industry. I used to go around thinking this is hilarious. Every big player is telling me they've got the same strategy. For years, it didn't matter whether you could just follow them all around, and they would all tell you that they were going to succeed in exactly the same way. And as a vendor, we'd all come away and go, well, they can't all be right, because the textbooks say that if you want to achieve a competitive advantage, you've got to find a strategy that's different and from your competitors and difficult to copy. So it's a very complex question, and I don't believe that one size fits all for every dealer. I mean, I've met many different dealers over the years, and some of them make a great living being incredibly reactive to opportunities. You know, there's absolutely nothing in their business that enables them to take the order that they've just taken, but somehow, because they are like that, overnight they found somebody to supply the floor paint, and they found somebody to go and paint the thing that the Air Force base needed, and actually they are so happy that they wouldn't think for a second of moving their account over to Lyrico's salesperson or whoever it is. Because they, quite rightly, they're very grateful that they solved that bigger problem, whatever that might be. Now, that's a very small thing that I've seen dealers do, and then other dealers are much more strategic and organized and trying to mine seams in data and all sorts of that. But the more you get up to that angle, you're more closer to the Amazon world, and you're farther away from whatever. So I think it's a complex answer. I don't think that I could answer for Chris, whoever it is, that there is one answer. You have to find that answer in the context of your existing position and what strengths you have.
No, I think that's a great answer. And actually, I think there's no better example of that point that you made, that the winners and losers in the PPE rush. So those that got to PPE quickly and that were agile and answered their customers' needs made money. Those that were slightly behind the curve probably ended up with a bit of.
I'll share a bit of vulnerability for everybody's amusement. Years ago, when I spent 8 years of my life making envelopes, everybody said, oh well, there's growth in direct mail, and there's decline in the use of envelopes in offices. So you will all understand this. So, I was young into JDs at the time, and my boss at the time went off and bought unbelievably expensive envelope machines that made envelopes like the other ones we've got. But actually the whole dynamic of the direct mail industry is so different from the office products industry. The fact that they were both envelopes is irrelevant. The point was that the entire rest of the business couldn't do it. So we just went in the wrong strategic direction. That actually, many people, they go, oh well, there's growth over there, so let's follow the growth. And actually, what we should have done was go and let others have the growth. Let's just do better what we've got and find ways around that. And that's eventually what we did. But we had to lose millions, and I
it's really interesting point on diversification as well there that you made earlier, which is diversification is not a new strategy.
No.
But very few people actually do it successfully. So thank you, Phil. Some great points there. Stuart, your views on added value, because you kind of mentioned it earlier, and I think you probably have some good views on that with your OD experience as well.
And to be honest, Philip, you know, you really hit the nail on the head. So I won't repeat stuff you've said because it's, you know, bang on. I think two things then, really, just to simplify it: be really clear on what is your core offering. You know, so be really clear on what your core offering is. And I'm sure over the last 12 months or 18 months through this period, that's what everyone's been looking at. What do we do? What do we do well? And that's our basic go-to-market strategy. And then define those extended ranges, the value-add services, whatever they might be. But my only recommendation in that, and I tell the sales teams here, you know, we have probably 20 things in our value prop. It would be ridiculous to go to your customers and go, I can do these 20 things because you just look like you're weak in all of them. So it goes back to understanding the customer. So have a clear definition of your core and what it stands for and be very good at it. And then understand the customer. And this is where the dealer network's got far more, you know, opportunity and far closer to the customer than most of the big boxes will be, including ourselves, because you just, that's your structure, and that's the added value and the ability. Understand the customer and define one or two things as a niche for that customer, and takes away pain. You know, those would be my only recommendations off the back of what Philip's already covered.
Okay, well, let's stick a little bit on the added value theme and just talk about sustainability a little bit, and kind of wrap into that a broader or less broad definition around kind of net zero, and how this is obviously you know, a very fast moving trend amongst all the others. But it's not, you know, almost falls into the diversification kind of piece where it requires investment. It's not easy. You can give it lip service, but it won't necessarily happen. Let's start at the top of the supply chain, and then I think work our way down, because it sort of makes sense on that. So, Philip, sustainability, how important is it? Is it a value add? How do you invest in sustainability now, when you know, only an hour ago we were talking about the perfect storm and potential stagnation that's going to impact our sector specifically?
Well, for us, I mean, sustainability it cannot be greenwash. I mean, the paper industry is actually certainly in Europe has pretty good credentials for its sustainability, but up until, well, not yet have any of us felt that the reward from marketing that, and that doesn't matter whether it's the paper manufacturers or the paper converters, nobody's ever felt there was enough value at consumer level to sell that message. You know, all this stuff about, oh well, there goes another rainforest because you've got a report. I mean, we all know in the industry it's rubbish. None of the paper that you're using comes from those rainforests. But now that there is the beginnings of more belief, I think that more corporate customers particularly, as well as individuals, do care about this. But unfortunately, we're just utterly surrounded by greenwash. And people just, you know, making this or that the perception of it might suggest that it is an environmental product, and we've got catalogues full of all manner of dots and this and that and whatever. And it's a minefield. Even the people within our industry. I mean, if I just take, say, paper side and books and converge paper, there's very few people who actually can explain and understand what is the situation even within our industry, let alone outside of it. And plastics is even more complicated. So it's really difficult, but I do think that there is a trend towards potential advantage to be had by carefully explaining your environmental credentials, and we as a brand owner, you know, will carefully go in that direction. But you won't find us going, you know, hey, here's a book with a monkey on the front. because particularly younger people, I think they see through this type of thing without even realizing they're seeing through it. They're just very good at spamming out stuff that they don't believe. So it's really complicated. I have to say, for me, the jury's open as to whether, because in the last 30 years, I've seen various times when the industry has gone headlong in that direction, particularly in the areas I've been working in converted paper and things, and put a lot of money into new product development, whatever. And then actually we and other people and everybody has then paid to put them back into the waste stream because they didn't sell. So there's lots of concern about finding the way forward. But as a direction of travel, it's definitely the right way to go. The whole industry should go in that direction, but it is not easy. And having the time, the money, and the energy to do all that at the same time as being fast enough with more agile decisions that we're all having to make to keep our businesses going through this kind of storm. It's tough to do those types of things at the same time at full speed. But hopefully, or no, not hopefully, I think that in over the next 5 years, we will see that come back in a more organized way.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try and squeeze in one or two questions after this, but I'm right up against it. So Nikki, on this one, brief answer, please. We're all aware that all businesses, particularly the larger ones, when you are heavily geared, have a decline of 20%, 20 or 30%, whatever it is. I don't mean your business, I just mean the industry as a whole. Investment in new initiatives is challenging. Sustainability, as Philip's kind of said, to be done properly, not to greenwash it, requires significant investment. How do you or VOW, either way, think that our sector, when we are challenged, yet we are, very right for sustainability? If you think about our products and our supply chain, how are we going to meet this challenge? And do we need to meet it, or is it just a trend that's going to go away again?
Well, I think it's a must-have. Whether it's a real must-have or not is a different debate. What I mean by that is, we're seeing more and more of our customers bidding for corporate contracts, tenders that must have certain boxes ticked on sustainability. Fact, whether or not it's real, whether they're just covering their own internal needs to be seen to be green, to be seen to be sustainable, we're not sure. We had a workshop on this actually just a few weeks ago in respect of how do we treat sustainability, and what do we need to do as a business to support the dealer community. We don't today get asked for lots of green credentials. Of course, we do have them, but we do recognise that sooner than later it's going to be back on the street. I agree with what Philip said earlier. I can remember 8-9 years ago, working on big projects internally on sustainability, and then it sort of fell by the wayside, and I think it is back, certainly. But from our perspective, it's a must-have. We need to really.
And is VOW or EVO setting aside significant investment to do that? You don't have to answer that, but because that's the conundrum, isn't it? No businesses are awash with capex at the moment, yet sustainability requires investment.
It does, and it requires specialists to come and support us. We don't today have the specialists. We have ideas and thoughts and some individuals that can support that, but investment, like I said, we had a workshop a couple of weeks ago on it, so right. It's firmly
coming once you know what you need to do. Got it.
Okay. Firm on the agenda. It's something that we need to provide a certain level for the dealers to be able to prove an element of sustainability, and that comes through obviously the supply chain with ourselves. So it's firm on the agenda. We think it's a must-have. It's going to be painful.
Okay, so I'm going to thank you. I'm going to sorry, David Stewart, to condense such an important point to one-word answers, but I want to get try and squeeze one more thing in, and I think it can be a binary question if I ask it correctly. And Stuart, I'll go to you first with your customer hat on rather than your kind of supplier hat on, if that makes sense. Do you see a significant, or are you seeing a significant increase because of CSR or whatever else in customers requiring greater sustainable credentials when you need to win them or retain them?
Absolutely, and I think Nick, I think it was covered it off at the beginning, and one of the main drivers that will be behind all of this is the government is spending the most amount of money right now. So if you want to deal with the government, you need the green credentials, CSR. You can't greenwash it. It's got to be real. And that will just trickle through the rest of the economy, because other people will want to deal with the government and they'll have to have the credentials within their own business. It will be a whole knock-on effect, but it definitely has come back on the radar, front and centre. And you know, we've got a lot of plans for it. Part of the reason of shutting down an old DC, going to a new one, is the CSR credentials and the benefits it gave us, significant. Supply chain.
So in that particular case, given the government is such a big spender and will continue to be, I think it's a must-have rather than a growth opportunity.
Absolutely.
And David, similar with you, your customers, it's a requirement rather than a nice to have.
I still think it's, at the moment, it's a requirement. Sorry, it's a nice to have.
Yeah.
People are too focused on getting out of this mess on that one, but we're working quite hard on it. We're doing a lot on it, and I've just posted a little note up on what we've done.
Yeah, I saw it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If he's interested and give me a shout on it, I'm happy to. Okay,
I'm going to try one more, or one and a half more questions. If or actually, I'll wrap it into one because I'll get told off. So the one and a half questions is go back to come out of the nice world that we've just been in a little bit, and come back to the industry stagflation, rising costs, decrease in demand, 60% less consumption of our core products when working from home. Home working is here to stay. Obviously, offices are going to become more populated, but it won't go back to what it was before. I want you to give a score and then a small amount of commentary afterwards justifying it. And you've all got to look me in the eyes and promise me you're going to be truthful and not and answer on behalf of yourself rather than on behalf of your company. And I think I'll go to Philip first, because I think he's likely to be the most well, everyone's going to be transparent, but how optimistic do you feel about the next 24 months for our sector, Philip, on a scale of 1 to 10? And brief commentary, please, on justification for your score. Sector as a whole, so that's why it's a personal thing, not a.
When you say sector as a whole, you're talking about the whole of our industry, or you're talking about the wholesale, the dealer channel? What are you just, sorry?
Yeah, sorry, it's a good point. I think I'm talking about our addressable sector, so the kind of wholesale vendor, wholesale dealer, what we in our boss hats on would say our traditional industry.
Okay, I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10. Okay. I do think there'll be more consolidation. There'll be more change, but I think it will survive and keep moving around to be able to have costs and revenues in enough balance to do that. Reasonably, I'd say positive. I mean,
great. Forward. Okay, that's excellent. I'm going to come to Stuart next, actually. Stuart.
Phil, I feel we're aligned. I would say a definite A, if not an A+. As I touched on earlier, there will be consolidation, whether you're a big box or small, medium, whatever. There will be more consolidation. There will be more changes. Amazon will change. Therefore, we all need to change. But those that continue to change and focus on the right people with the right customers, it's at least an 8.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Let's go to Nikki next.
Okay, slightly more optimistic, 9 out of 10.
Wow.
And yeah, and for me, very sweet and short, opportunities here right now. The pandemic's given us more opportunity, I think, than we've had previously. I would say to our daily community now, focus on customer experience and focus on self-serve.
Brilliant. Okay.
Get those right, your opportunity widens even further.
Great answer. Thank you, Nikki. And very much last but not least, David, you can have a, I might squeeze in one more question, but David, because everyone's been so instructively concise, unlike me, David, score and justification for your score, please. The judges are in.
Between 5 and 9, depending on your region.
5 and 9. Okay. 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 Do a 5 and a 9. You can have a 5 and a 9. You can be schizophrenic on this answer.
And then the answer is, I believe if your customers are on a long commute, then you're in the 5 area, and a short commute, they want to go back to work.
Okay, that's interesting. Right. So that's very interesting.
Southeast, hammered, northwest, laughing, basically.
Okay, excellent. Okay, everyone moved to the northwest.
No.
Oh, sorry. Why not? Why not?
It is.
Okay. Well, you're there, David. Okay, that's brilliant. Well, I was going to squeeze in one other question, but I don't think I've got time. I really want to thank the panel. I'll tell you why, because I know how stacked everyone is. I'm pulling favors left, right, and centre to make this happen. So I want to thank them, but I think we should all thank them because I think that was really insightful, interesting, open, some great points in there. I think, you know, I'll probably try and find time to sum up later, but I've made lots of notes and there's some really salient points that came out of that. So don't think you can do virtual round of applauses, but if we take them off screen, but I owe you all something. Thank you so much. Brilliant. I knew it would be a good panel, and I was right, as I always am. So thank you very much indeed.